Hello and welcome to my shop. My name is Tracy Maxfield and this is Hammer Down Woodworking. This is going to be part 2 in a build series of this 3-corner hutch. Last time we left off with just building the carcass. So today we're going to start milling some lumber and working on the face frame and also part of the drawer assembly. First I cut the lumber to a rough length at the miter saw. And then I joint one face of each board at the joint. And then each board is sent through the thickness planer to get it down to its final thickness. And then back to the joiner to joint one edge. And then to the table saw to get the final width and adding a 45-degree bevel. Using blue painter's tape, I tape these up just like you would for a small mitered box, and these pieces will make the stiles for both sides of the face frame. Now it's time to start spreading the glue, and for this project I use Titebond 3. I use Titebond 3 for most everything that I do. Once the glue is spread, then I just fold it up and hold it in place, clamping it with more blue tape. And then using a straw, I clean up the excess squeeze out. And then these pieces are allowed to dry overnight, and then the tape is removed. And everything is sanded to 220. These stiles are temporarily clamped in place and lined up parallel to each other to get the exact measurements for the rails and the drawer assembly to go in between them. There was a lot of work that went into this process. This had to be right or the face frame wouldn't come out square. I had to loosen clamps, move just a little, tighten clamps back up, and keep measuring just over and over and over again. There was actually no way to do a dry fit other than clamping to the face of the carcass, so I had to really rely on my measurements in order to get this thing to come out square. Once I was satisfied with the placement of each stile, I got my measurements and went to the table saw. Each rail was cut to width. Then I squared up one end using my table saw sled, and then the other end was squared up and cut to length. The drawer facing is also going to serve as a rail for the face frame, and I also wanted a continuous grain flow, so I marked out my cuts on the selected piece of wood that I was going to use and went over to the bandsaw. This facing will have one actual drawer in the middle and 2 false drawers on each side. Being extremely careful to keep these pieces in order, I cut off both tops and then cut off each drawer divider in each drawer facing. And then the pieces are reassembled at the bench. And here's this piece laid back out just like it came apart. And then one by one I took each piece out of its position, and using a shooting board and a plane, I squared up all 4 sides of each piece. And then it's time to reassemble the drawer frame. Then each drawer facing was put back in place, and I ended up with roughly around 3 seconds gap all the way around all three pieces. And then I used a card scraper to clean up any mill marks that there was on the top and the bottom of the frame itself. Although held together temporarily with clamps, you can see how this is coming together. And then the face frame is held together with some glue and pocket hole joiner. To save you from having to watch lumber being milled again, I milled the material for the drawer off camera and then used the quarter cable dovetail jig to add some half-blind dovetails to the drawer. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and be sure to ring the bell, that way you won't miss the next video in this series of the 3-corner Hutch build. And just in case anyone's interested, this jig that I'm using is a quarter cable 4216 dovetail jig. I've done a unboxing, setup, and use review type video on this sometime back. I'll leave a link to that in the description just in case someone is interested in it. For the drawer bottom, I'm using some 1/4-inch oak plywood. I rip that down to a more manageable size on the table saw, and then I use the table saw sled to bring it to its final dimensions. Then using a Craig Easy Set, I set the height of my blade for the cut. Then I set the fence to place the drawer bottom slot in the desired location, which will be located where the dovetail will actually cover the slot to keep it from being exposed on the outside of the drawer. Then each piece is ran across the blade multiple times, moving the fence over just a little at a time, creeping up on the perfect fit. And I use a small piece offcut of the plywood to test the fit. Now it's time to assemble the drawer. I glue it up, put it under clamps, and check it for square. And I use the router table to cut the slot in the drawer casing and also in each side of the drawer. I wanted to keep this build as traditional as possible, so I will be using a wooden drawer runner instead of a manufactured drawer slide. So there was multiple mock-ups between the drawer casing and the drawer itself to make sure that these slots lined up perfectly. And there you can see those slots. I put a taper on the drawer runner. This makes it easier to start the drawer onto the runner itself when feeding the drawer into the casing. Then I glue the runner into the slot on the inside of the drawer casing. I also added some stop blocks into the back of the drawer casing. This will stop the drawer at an exact spot, which makes the drawer front stop flush with the drawer frame on the front of the cabinet. And these are glued and screwed into place. That way, no matter how hard the drawer may be shut, it doesn't knock those loose, and they always stay right where they're supposed to be. And there's a look at how that works. This will do it for this one. Be sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of the next video in this build series. And thanks for watching.